93% of retired Americans, people who have already finished working, who are right now living in retirement today, do not have $500,000 saved. And the financial institutions publishing the benchmarks telling you 500,000 is nowhere near enough have always had access to that exact federal data. They publish the fear and they own the facts simultaneously. The sticker price was never an accident. It was engineered. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly who wrote it, what it cost the people who believed it, and this is the part the industry hopes you never run the income math that makes the sticker price completely irrelevant for most people anyway. Here is what this video is. I'm going to show you the real distribution of American retirement savings, sourced from the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances and the Employee Benefit Research Institute, not a Fidelity marketing brochure, not a Northwestern Mutual survey about feelings. Then I'm going to show you why the gap between what you're told to save and what retirees actually have isn't confusion and isn't a math error. It's a revenue model with a disclosed fee structure you can look up yourself. And then I'm going to show you the income side of the equation that completely changes every number you've been anchoring to. Because if you're doing the savings math without doing the income math, you are playing half a game with all the pressure and none of the context. By the way, I built a free early retirement calculator because most of the ones online are mathematically wrong. It uses BlackRock and Vanguard modeling logic to expose the actual weak points in your retirement plan. And I only ask for your email to send you the report because I don't store any of your financial data. Link is in the description. Now, the central metaphor of this entire video is a car lot. Walk onto any dealer lot and the MSRP is right there on the window. Bold, official looking, laminated. The full sticker price printed as though it were a natural law, and almost nobody pays it. There's the invoice price, the manufacturer incentive, the dealer holdback, the end of quarter discount they won't advertise but will absolutely give you if you show up on the right Saturday. The actual transaction price on almost any car is meaningfully below the sticker, but the sticker is on every window, making you feel like the full number is the only number. The retirement industry has been running the same play for 30 years. $1.46 million is the MSRP. And I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes showing you what people actually pay and what it costs when the sticker wins. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you the income math that makes the sticker price collapse under basic arithmetic. But first, you need to understand how the sticker price got written in the first place and who gets paid every single time you believe it. Let me start with a thought experiment, because data alone doesn't stick the way a story does. Imagine you hired a personal trainer. Day one, they hand you an intake sheet. At the top, it says, to be considered functionally healthy, you must be able to run a 4-minute mile. This is not aspirational. This is the clinical minimum. You'd spend your entire fitness life feeling like a failure. You'd hire that trainer indefinitely, buy more equipment, more supplements, more sessions. You'd be a customer forever. The 4-minute mile would be obviously absurd, a world-class athletic standard dressed up as a baseline health requirement if you ever pulled the actual research on cardiovascular fitness for normal people in their 50s. But if you trusted the trainer and never checked the primary source, you'd keep running, exhausted, perpetually behind, writing more checks. That is the retirement conversation in America, and it has been for at least 20 years. Here are the actual numbers, because I don't do vague on this channel. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the most comprehensive household financial data the U.S. government conducted every 3 years for Americans between 65 and 74. The average retirement account balance sits at approximately $609,000. That sounds reasonably healthy until you understand what an average actually measures in a skewed distribution. The average doesn't tell you about a typical person. It tells you about the weight of the outliers at the very top, the people with $3 million, $5 million, $10 million in accounts, pulling the arithmetic mean far above the middle. The median, the number, where exactly half the population sits above and half sits below, is approximately $200,000 for that same age group. Half of all American retirees right now have less than $200,000 saved. Let me give you the full distribution, because this is where it gets genuinely striking. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, approximately 7.2% of all Americans, not retirees specifically, all Americans, including younger people who have more time to accumulate $500,000 or more in retirement accounts. Within the retiree population specifically, the percentage with over $1 million is approximately 3.2%. 3. Out of 100 retired Americans walking around today, 3 have crossed the $1 million mark. 97 have not. And yet the benchmark conversation acts as though failing to reach the $1 million territory is an anomaly. Here is the tension. You've heard the Fidelity benchmark 10 times, your salary by 67 at least a dozen times. You've seen the Northwestern Mutual survey year after year. Americans believe they need $1.46 million to retire comfortably. These numbers are everywhere. Every personal finance website, every advisor intake form, every calculator on the internet produces some version of this target. And if those numbers represent real minimums for a comfortable retirement, then what you are looking at in the Federal Reserve data is a civilizational catastrophe. 93% of American retirees would be failing right now, living in quiet financial disaster. Statistically, the average American retiree you pass at the grocery store this morning is part of a generation-wide emergency. Except, the Employee Benefit Research Institute Retirement Satisfaction Survey shows 62% of retirees rated their satisfaction at an 8 or higher out of 10. In 2020, a pandemic year, markets crashing, real-world financial stress everywhere, it was still a majority satisfied, most of them with nowhere close to $1 million saved. So either the benchmarks are wildly wrong, or the definition of comfortable retirement has been deliberately inflated to serve someone else's interests. I'll let that sit for exactly one sentence before I tell you whose interests. The industry's. Let's build this out precisely, because the mechanism matters. Back in the early 90s, something fundamental shifted in American retirement. Defined benefit pensions, the kind where your employer promised you a monthly check for life. No portfolio management required, no sequence of returns risk, no worrying about whether you picked the right asset allocation at 53, started getting phased out at scale, replaced by defined contribution plans, your 401k, your IRA, individual accounts that you manage, that you stress about, that you pay fees on. Between 1980 and 2019, private sector pension participation dropped from roughly 38% of workers to approximately 13%. Suddenly the question, how much is enough to retire, became something tens of millions of individual Americans had to answer for themselves. Without a framework, without institutional guidance, without anything resembling a clear benchmark. Their parents had pensions, they had a brokerage account, and a lot of uncertainty. And financial institutions were perfectly positioned to answer the question. They had the actuarial tables, the modeling software, the distribution channels, the advisors in every suburban office park. They also had an extraordinary structural incentive to make the answer as large as possible. Here is the mechanism, and it is not subtle once you see it. The modern wealth management industry charges fees almost exclusively as a percentage of assets under management. If your advisor manages $200,000 for you, they charge approximately 1 to 1.5% per year, $2,000 to $3,000 annually. If they manage $400,000, percentage, twice the revenue. The single most important variable in their business model is not whether you retire comfortably. It is how many dollars sit in managed accounts. More assets in managed accounts means more revenue. The sticker price exists because the sticker price is profitable. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a disclosed revenue model. You can read the exact structure in any Form 80 filed with the SEC. It's a public document, free to search. Now let me make the fee cost concrete rather than abstract, because compound math in this direction is just as powerful as compound math working in your favor. A 1% annual fee on $200,000 is $2,000 a year. Sounds manageable. But over 30 years, the growth that fee prevents the investment return on the money you paid out. Instead of compounding, costs you approximately $170,000 in lost wealth. Not the fee itself, the opportunity cost, and that's at $200,000. If the sticker price is convinced that you need to accumulate $1.46 million in a managed account and you do it, and you pay 1% annually on that balance for 20 years, you are paying for the sticker price on the way in and paying a percentage of it every year you hold it. The MSRP keeps charging you after you drive off the lot. And the delivery mechanism for the sticker price isn't a brokerage pamphlet. It's a survey about feelings. Northwestern Mutual asks Americans how much they think they'll need to retire comfortably. Americans, having been marinated for decades in benchmark talk and scary retirement headlines from the same institutions, say 1.46 million. Northwestern Mutual publishes the survey. Financial media amplifies it. The cycle runs itself. Nobody manufactures the fear anymore. The ecosystem does it automatically, every year, with a new survey, a new scary number, a new cohort of people who feel behind. By the way, hit subscribe if you're getting something out of this. YouTube's algorithm is genuinely strange. And if you don't subscribe, there is a real chance it stops showing you my content. I read the Federal Reserve documents and the EBRI reports, so you don't have to. Seems like a fair exchange. This is where it gets really interesting, because the savings number, the sticker price, the MSRP, is not just expensive, it's an answer to the wrong question. And this is the reversal that changes everything about how you should be thinking about this. You think the problem is your savings balance. Actually, the problem is that you've been given a savings target with no income context attached. And without the income context, the savings number is completely meaningless. Let me be precise about this. The retirement question is not, how much do I have saved? The retirement question is, how much income do I need every month? How much of that is already guaranteed? And what does my savings need to cover the gap between those two numbers? Those are fundamentally different questions with fundamentally different answers. And the industry wants you answering the first one. The first one is what they charge fees on. The second and third questions involve Social Security, pension benefits, paid off housing, rental income, part-time work things that have nothing to do with managed investment accounts. So they consistently disappear from the standard conversation. They're not in the Fidelity email, they're not in the benchmark article, they're in the footnote of the footnote, if they appear at all. I want to introduce you to someone. His name is Frank. I've constructed Frank from a composite of cases I've come across, but I've seen versions of him often enough that he's worth describing in detail. Frank is 67, retired postal worker, 31 years of service, lives in Akron, Ohio. His neighbors look at Frank and see a guy who probably squeezed through retirement on not much modest house, older car, no vacation photos anywhere. Frank saved $140,000 in a thrift savings plan over his career. By every sticker price standard, Frank is a cautionary tale. Except Frank has a federal pension of approximately $1,900 per month. He claimed Social Security at 66 and receives $2,050 per month. His house has been paid off since he was 61. His total guaranteed income is $3,950. His actual monthly expenses in a paid-off house in Akron, not Manhattan, not San Francisco, run about $3,200 a month. Frank is cash flow positive every single month of retirement. His savings sit in a Vanguard index fund he checks roughly twice a year, growing slowly, available for emergencies or larger one-time expenses. Frank is not surviving retirement. Frank is comfortable in retirement. And he did it with savings that the sticker price would classify as a quiet disaster. Now keep Frank in the back of your mind, because I want to come back to him. There's a subplot here that matters. Frank's neighbor Gary has $800,000 in a brokerage account managed by an advisor who charges him 1.1% annually, $8,800 per year in fees. Gary has no pension. He has a mortgage that runs until he's 71. He needs to withdraw approximately 4.4% of his portfolio annually to cover his expenses, which is already outside the range that most financial planners consider safely sustainable over a long retirement. Gary reads every retirement article. Gary attended 2 financial planning webinars last year. Gary feels behind. Gary's advisor sends him a 12-page quarterly report that Gary doesn't finish reading. Gary's retirement has moved from 65 to 67 to maybe 68. Nobody in Gary's planning conversations has ever asked about his income floor because Gary's advisor earns $8,800 a year on Gary's assets. and the income floor question doesn't touch that number. Frank, with $140,000 saved, sleeps better than Gary. That's the subplot. And it resolves at the end of this video in a way that I think is going to reframe something for you permanently. Let me give you the two-pile framework now, because this is the most useful structural tool I can hand you for thinking about retirement. Every single retiree, whether they think about it this way or not, is working with two distinct piles of resources. Pile one is guaranteed income: Social Security, pension payments, annuity income, rental income, anything that shows up every month regardless of what equity markets do that week. Pile two is the savings pile: your 401k, your IRA, your brokerage account. Pile two gets every benchmark, every scary headline, every fee, every survey result. Pile two is the MSRP conversation in its entirety. But the most important retirement question is never how big is pile. It is how big does pile two need to be to bridge the gap between pile one and your actual monthly spending. These are wildly different questions. And here is the number that almost never appears in the mainstream retirement conversation. The invisible asset that I think deserves its own few minutes: Social Security. For a worker who earned average wages over a full career and claims at full retirement age, Social Security pays somewhere between $1,800 and $2,500 per month in today's dollars. For a married couple where both spouses worked, that's potentially $3,500 to $4,500 per month in combined guaranteed income indexed to inflation for life, requiring zero portfolio management, zero sequence of returns stress, zero advisor involvement. A private annuity that paid $3,500 per month, inflation adjusted, for a couple's joint lifetime, you would need to spend somewhere between $800,000 and over $1 million to buy that product from an insurance company today. Social Security is providing that outcome for free to millions of households. It just doesn't show up in the assets under management column, so it disappears from the planning conversation. The calculations producing $1.46 million as your retirement target almost always assume you'll need to replace 80 to 90% of your problem pre-retirement income from your savings alone. Some of them exclude Social Security from the model entirely. Others apply it as a small offset buried in the assumptions tab. Remove Social Security from the income side of the equation, and of course, the savings target looks catastrophic. You've just deleted an asset worth the equivalent of $1 million annuity and then told someone they're short $1 million. That's not analysis. That's a gap manufactured for a purpose. A financial advisor sits down with a client who has been saving diligently for 22 years. The client asks, "Are we on track?" The advisor runs the model against the standard benchmark. Says, "With one more year of saving, you'll have enough cushion to feel secure." Client works one more year, comes back one more year. This happens 6 more times. The client retires at 73 instead of 62. The difference in retirement, the decade of good health, mobility, time with grandchildren, freedom to say no to things, does not appear on any financial statement. It is not disclosed in the Form ADV. Nobody is ever required to account for it. But it is the most expensive thing that happened in that relationship. Now, let me run the full math for someone who looks a lot like you. Earning $120,000 annually at age 52 has been maxing their 401k for roughly 15 years. Current balance, $380,000. Married, spouse works, part-time. Projecting mortgage payoff by age 65. Gets the Fidelity email every year that says, based on your current trajectory, you're at 73% of your retirement goal. Feels behind. Skipped a family trip 2 summers ago because the anxiety was too loud to ignore. Let me call this person the benchmark victim. Here's what the full math actually shows. Social Security benefit at full retirement age of 67. For someone earning $120,000 per year over their career is approximately $2,300 per month. That number comes directly from the Social Security Administration's published benefit formula, which I'll link below. Spouse projects roughly $950 per month in benefits, combined guaranteed income from pile one, $3,250 per month, mortgage paid off at 65. Actual projected monthly spending in retirement with grown children, no mortgage payment, lower commuting costs, no work-related wardrobe, parking, or lunches, approximately $4,700 per month. The gap between guaranteed income and actual spending, $1,450 per month. Annualized, $17,400 per year. Using the 4% rule as a sustainability check to cover $17,400 per year sustainably from savings without depleting the principal over a 30-year retirement, you need approximately $435,000 in savings. $435,000, not $1.46 million, not $900,000. Current balance, $380,000. 15 years until age 67. Even if this person contributed $0 additional dollars to the 401k starting today, which they won't, because they're still working and likely still getting an employer match $380,000, growing at a conservative 6% real annual return over 15 years, becomes approximately $911,000, more than double the actual required gap coverage amount. Fidelity said they were at 73% of their goal. That's because Fidelity measured them against a sticker price that doesn't include their security income. The MSRP won. The sticker was still on the window. The vacation stayed unbooked. Here's something that doesn't get discussed enough in this context, and probably should. The psychological cost of believing you're behind when you're not is not a soft, qualitative cost. It's hard, measurable, and it compounds in the same direction as a bad investment decision. When people believe they're perpetually behind on retirement savings, research in behavioral finance shows they make systematically worse investment decisions in predictable ways. They panic sell during market because every point of volatility feels like a threat they cannot absorb because they believe they have no margin. They over-allocate to low return safe assets because they've associated any risk with existential danger rather than managed uncertainty. They avoid engaging with their finances at all because the topic has become associated with shame and failure, which means they miss contribution windows, employer matches, Roth conversion opportunities that close at year end and do not reopen. The sticker price doesn't make you save more aggressively. It makes you worse at the game you're actually playing. And being worse at the game is what creates the retirement shortfall the sticker price was supposedly warning you about. It's a self-reinforcing system that happens to generate fee revenue at every stage. There's also something worth understanding about sequence of returns risk, because this is the piece of the retirement that actually does require real savings and real planning. And I want to be precise about this so the full picture is honest. The 4% rule has had critics since William Bengen introduced it in 1994. Some researchers, particularly in the post-2008 low-yield environment, argue that a 3 to 3.3% withdrawal rate is more sustainable for a 35-year retirement starting in the early 60s. That matters, and it moves the savings target upward for people who start early. The sequence of your returns in the first 5 years of retirement is disproportionately important to your long-term outcome. A brutal market downturn in year 1 is far more damaging than the same downturn in year 15, because you're selling shares at the bottom to fund living expenses before prices recover, which means the more you depend on your savings pile relative to your guarantee pile, the more vulnerable you are to a bad draw in the sequence. This is another argument for understanding your floor and maximizing it before you retire. The larger your guaranteed income, the less you need to withdraw from the savings pile in any given year, the less sequence risk you carry. Frank essentially has zero sequence risk. He doesn't have to sell a single share in a down market. His income floor covers everything. Gary, with $800,000 in equities and a withdrawal rate that's already borderline unsustainable, has significant sequence risk regardless of his impressive looking balance. The industry would like you to solve sequence risk by accumulating more assets, more dollars in the AUM column. There's another solution. Optimize your income floor. It's less profitable for them, more effective for you. Now, here is the conversation Gary's advisor will never initiate with him. And the reason I find this industry funny in the particular way I find it funny, which is amused disappointment, not outrage. Gary could delay Social Security from 62 to 70. Every year, you delay past full retirement age, your benefit grows by approximately 8%. That's a guaranteed 8% annual return on what is already an inflation-adjusted lifetime income stream. There's no investment product in the world with a better risk-adjusted return than delayed Social Security, claiming it is actuarially the single best financial decision available to most Americans with a reasonable life expectancy. And yet, it reduces the urgency around accumulating assets under management, so it doesn't tend to be the first thing in the conversation. Gary's advisor has a 12-page quarterly report for Gary. The delay your Social Security conversation is approximately 1 page. You can probably do the math on which one appears in the client review packet. 3 practical takeaways specific to everything we've just walked through. First, before you open any retirement calculator, go to ssa.gov and run your Social Security estimate. Log in, it takes 4 minutes. Look at the projected benefit at age 62, at full retirement age, and at 70. Write down those 3 numbers. Then add any pension income, any rental income, any guaranteed monthly payment from any source. That total is your income floor. It is the most important number in your retirement plan. It costs you nothing to build it, and every savings target you've ever been given was calculated either ignoring it or minimizing it. You cannot run a gap coverage calculation without knowing what the floor is. The calculator I built in the description does this automatically. But even doing it manually with a spreadsheet and the SSA website gives you a clearer picture than any benchmark ever has. Second, calculate your actual retirement spending, not a percentage of your current income. Retirement spending typically drops 15 to 25% from peak earning years because the mortgage often ends, children become financially independent, and work-related costs commuting, parking, lunches, professional wardrobe disappear. For someone earning $120,000 today, actual retirement spending might be $65,000 to $75,000 annually, not $96,000, as an 80% income replacement ratio suggests. Build your retirement budget from actual projected line items: housing, food, healthcare, travel, discretionary spending. The difference between a percentage-based estimate and a line item estimate can easily be $15,000 per year, which is $375,000 less in required savings at the 4% rule. That gap was manufactured by the percentage convention. Third, and this is the one that will cost you the most if you ignore, the most dangerous retirement mistake is not undersaving. It's miscalibrating risk because you believe you're behind when you're not. People who believe they're perpetually behind reach for yield. They take concentrated positions. They respond to every market correction with dread instead of patience. They buy complicated financial products with embedded fees that promise to help them catch up to a benchmark that was reverse engineered to make them feel behind in the first place. The behavioral costs of the sticker price, compounded over 20 or 30 years of working life, is larger than the fee cost. Both are real and measurable. The behavioral one is harder to see on a quarterly statement, which is exactly why it persists. Now, the subplot resolves here. Frank is still in Akron. He went to a hockey game last month with his grandkids. He checks his Vanguard account twice a year and has not made a single trade in 3 years. The account has grown. Frank has not worried about sequence of returns risk one single time in retirement because his income floor covers his expenses and his savings are a buffer, not a lifeline. Gary is in a meeting with his advisor right now. The advisor just sent him a 12-page document about portfolio rebalancing in a high inflation environment. Gary's going to read 6 pages and then feel vaguely anxious about the part he didn't finish. Gary's retirement date moved again last quarter. Gary has $800,000 and feels less secure than Frank with $140,000. The 2-pile framework is the operating system. If you're looking at retirement through a single pile lens, only the savings balance, only the 401k number, you are playing the game with the most important variable removed. The industry built the lens that way. They gave you the camera and quietly left out the lens cap that shows you the floor. Once you see the floor, the sticker price stops being scary. It becomes what it always was, a number on a window designed to make you feel like you owe something you don't. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And somewhere right now, Gary is asking his advisor if maybe they should look at adding some alternative assets to the portfolio. The advisor is nodding slowly. Nobody in the room has said the words income floor. Nobody has mentioned the 8% per year return available from delaying Social Security claiming. The MSRP is still on the window. And Gary, with $800,000 in managed accounts, is going to work one more year